Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending today's webinar, BSS Digital Transformation and Delivering a Superior Customer Experience, presented by Atos. So I'll be the moderator today, and my name is John Abraham. I'm a principal analyst with Analysys Mason. We are a TMT-focused research and consulting firm based in the UK. Now, in terms of our agenda for the day, I will start with an introduction to digital transformation, followed by Mony Kochupillai, the CTO of Telecom, Media and Technology Northern Europe at Atos. He will be setting the industry context, followed by Jaap van Mechelen, Head of Global Telecom, Media and Technology Portfolio at Atos. We'll be having a discussion on how do operators achieve this transformation before Jonathan Phillips, Director of Communications Industry Marketing at Salesforce, provides us an example of transformation. Now, you can read all of our bios on the left side of your screen by selecting the Speakers tab. And just a few other housekeeping technical notes. Please view additional notes by clicking on the Handouts tab. The webcast is being streamed through the computer, so there is no dial-in number, but the webinar is actually being recorded, and it'll be available within 24 hours after the event. Hopefully, we'll have some time for a Q&A, and please do submit your questions using the Question and Answers tab on the left side of your screen. All right, with that, I begin a brief introduction to digital transformation. So what you see on the screen is the pyramid that actually represents the key motivators for digital transformation today. Pretty much every operator is pursuing digital transformation in some way or form. And what this figure actually captures is what is the logical flow of drivers, in terms of why operators pursue digital transformation. It does not mean that they actually start at 5 and then go or try and aim for 1, but usually digital experience and virtualized networks at 4 and 5 are the most common starting points. In fact, digital experience is considered to be the most popular starting point for any digital transformation program, and the reason can be understood by looking at the top of that pyramid. The apex of what a number of operators expect from digital transformation is a shift in how they are perceived by their end customers, by their shareholders, and by their public markets. So in that regard, improving the digital experience makes the biggest impact in transforming customer perceptions, which is why, understandably, it is a strategic priority for most operators today. So this slide here reaffirms the shift that is already underway from direct and assisted channels to digital and unassisted channels. This particular survey, by the way, which covered around 9,000 respondents over the age of 18 in the United States and selected countries across Europe, was gathered, I think, over 2020 by a colleague of mine. And if anything, COVID has only further accelerated this trend. And at this rate, we expect digital channels to become dominant in the short term. But the important thing is that direct channels are not going away. They are likely to become more specialized, more focused, but they will still be around for some more time. All right. In terms of this particular slide actually provides a high-level overview of how telcos approach transformation of customer experience and how that has evolved over the past 2 decades. Now, looking at that slide, before 2000s, there was a lot of emphasis on coverage and billing and so on, but very little emphasis on customer experience as a factor for improvement. But that changed in the 2000s with the explosive growth of mobile telephony, which brought a lot of change to how operators functioned. And in the 2010s, the smartphone wave really took off, and with that, the app economy, which again changed how consumers engaged with their service providers. And all of these factors actually had an impact on how operators approached customer experience. Now, in the next decade, I believe intelligent technology will be an important enabler of an all new pedigree of CX. And we are already seeing the early examples of that, but there is much more to come in terms of widespread intelligence and self-assisted channels and chatbots and voice bots and so on and so forth. All right. So as I just spoke about in the earlier slides, customer experience is a strategic priority for operators today. And that obviously means that there is a major cycle of investment underway to overhaul and improve existing capabilities. Now, I must add that at the same time that this investment is being made into new systems, operators are also looking at cutting cost of legacy systems by moving them away from legacy frameworks, if possible, into the public cloud. And any savings that they realize are actually put back or invested back into improving their CX. 87 billion is what operators are expected to spend over the period from 2020 to 2025. With consumer activities accounting for that, no particular. So, mainly because operators are expected to ramp up their investments into enterprise, to address emerging opportunities. All right. From a consumer CX perspective, one important change is that a growing number of operators are shifting from a inside out, or what is also called a system-centric approach, to an outside in or an engagement-centric approach while upgrading their systems infrastructure. And this is a very significant shift, because in the past, operators used to favor building in systems around existing infrastructure which often resulted in a complex maze, that would also obviously inherit shortcomings of older systems. So in the engagement-centric approach, the approach is reversed in the sense that operators begin with the customer and then plan it backwards on how best to support sales and service and marketing. So that means that there will be implications on how, on the architecture frameworks, on operating models, on process flows, and even team structures, and also the competencies that teams need to have. But the important takeaway is that all of this is expected to improve agility many times over and also deepen engagement with the end customer, mainly because it will offer operators the ability to swiftly tune their systems based on preferences and changing market conditions. All right, my final slide here, I look at the enterprise side of things on why investments into enterprise customer experience is set to increase over the next few years. Now, clearly, 5G is by far the biggest driver, as it is expected to drive new opportunities for B2B and B2B2X. And operators obviously are keen to make sure that they are well prepared for it and that they also have a seamless way of engaging with the audience, with the relevant audience. So in that regard, technology that will help enterprise self-serve and also technology that can help operators automate their engagement capabilities will be the main focus of investments. The idea here is to leverage intelligence to, to seamlessly enable onboarding of new partners, connection with of ecosystems, and building a thriving marketplace that can allow them to address different types of opportunities. So with that, Let me hand over to Mony from Atos.
So in this section of the presentation, I like to share my thoughts on three things. What I believe is the challenge that telcos face in the industry. That's number one. Number two, why I believe or my diagnosis of that challenge. And number three, what the opportunity moving forward for telcos. And what I'm sharing today is based on my 20 years of experience working across the business and technology domains with the telcos. So if I begin with, in terms of the challenges, if you focus on what is on the left-hand side, to start with the demand, if you reflect on our own usage of the mobile devices, maybe about 10 years ago, we hardly had any app or, rarely used the devices. But what we find today is the consumer demand for mobile data is growing. And almost we also have stats which shows that the screen time for consumers is doubling every couple of years. And you also know that how critical it is these days, mobile devices, whether you lost your way or you lost your wallet, first thing you reach out to is your mobile devices. Equally, working from home, there is no need to reiterate, actually. It's so critical. So the telcos provide a service which is so critical for consumers and businesses. So I like to say it's almost like a second oxygen, actually. And with the consumption growing, what is happening is the customer expectation is also increasing. They expect the most reliable service. They want it to just work. And what you also see there, particularly, I have shown UK as an example, but you find that the trend globally, the demand is growing, but the prices are falling. Customers are using more data, but paying less. This is a little bit weird in our industry, because in other industries, for example, hospitality, as the demand goes up, price also goes up. But in our case, demand is going up, customers are consuming more, but the price is coming down. And having said that, if you focus on the middle part of the chart slide, about 20 to 50% of the consumers across the world are dissatisfied with the service they receive from the telcos. And this varies. Say in some countries it is 20%, and some countries it is 50%. For example, when I looked at the customer satisfaction index, for example, in India, in Delhi, almost 50% of the customers were dissatisfied with the telco service they receive. And in the UK, it is typically about 20%. It's quite a lot of dissatisfaction. And what that means in terms of NPS, if you look at the blended NPS across telcos around the world, is +6. That is compared to +70 for the new digital entrants. And we need to recognize as an industry that the customers are used to experience these services from new digital entrants, where they are, the NPS is +70, and experiencing our telco services, where the NPS is +6. I have also come across cases where, say, for example, the NPS for B2B customers with some telcos is negative. The implication of this is it limits the growth potential for telcos. And growth potential because it drives churn. As you know, the biggest churn driver for telcos is customer experience. That's number one. Number two, if you don't provide great customer experience, it also limits the upsell and the cross-sell potential. And if you move on to the right part of the slide, as you can see there, what you see there is the service revenue growth for 4 major telcos in the UK. Again, this is an example. And you would see this broadly in most parts of the world, that the service revenue is declining. And what we can say is it's overall, the telcos are under revenue pressure. And this is driven by competition from the peers. It's a competition from over-the-top players. And they are also under revenue pressure driven by regulation, for instance. In the case of regulation, we all know, for example, no roaming charges, for example, in Europe. And there are restrictions in terms of what you can charge and cannot charge at the end of contract. For example, there is automated compensation when things go wrong with the services. And what you also find is the customer experience has a greater role to play in service revenue growth. The reason I say this is one of the biggest contributor of customer experience, as I said before, is churn. A telco with 10 million customers, for example, in Europe, typically leaks about €1 billion per annum in terms of total customer lifetime value. It's a lot of money. And what that also means is when you don't have great experience, it also limits the ability to upsell and cross-sell. And on top of this, with declining service revenue, what the telcos also need to do is invest in new technologies, be it 5G, be it, say, fiber to the home, and invest on transformation. And there is also increasing complexity with all these technology stacks to operate. So overall, this is contributing to telcos' profitability. So as a summary, what we can say is that currently, the telco industry is not able to fully meet the customer expectations in terms of the experience they expect. And the telcos are also under massive profitability pressure. So what do the telcos need to do? There is no need to preach. Of course, this is my view. Based on my experience, the first time, it's very, very simple in my opinion, but complicated to execute. The first thing they need to do is reduce the revenue leak that is caused by churn, that by helping the customers to stay longer. The second one, they have to sell more products, enabling the customers to buy more. But the foundation, the core to this is customer experience. I have so much of empirical evidence which shows that if the customers have great experience, they will stay longer, they will buy more. And that is a simple task, but complicated to execute. And needless to say, if you focus your attention to the middle chart there, the telcos have acknowledged and everyone recognize, and their number one strategic priority is improving customer experience. But I haven't seen there is massive change when it comes to customer experience. My view of this is, while customer experience is the key thing which they want to prioritize, but the way it has been approached is it is technology led. And we drive 5G, for example, which is a technology. We drive cloudification. We drive, say, for example, fiber to the home. I think what is extremely important here is that the customer experience is considered as a byproduct, although it is number one priority. And if you move to further right, even in organizations where customer experience gets the focus, what you find is in this chart, this is a customer journey moments for a typical telco customer. And what you find is, of course, the customers come in, buy the product, they search, they discover, they buy the product, they pay, they get it, then they use it and need support and they leave. What you find is predominantly the team for the focus for the customer experience team has been what is highlighted in the black. And what I observe is the core product experience, which in the telco's case is connectivity experience. And that is often being left to the engineering team to deal with. And this is something, it is great, but extremely important that we focus on, as a telco industry, we focus on the end-to-end experience for the customers. And as a summary, what I believe, there is a shift that is required in the industry, which is a technology-led transformation into a CX-led transformation. And this shift is critical for telco's success moving forward. And I just wanted to say, in the CX-led transformation, technology plays a critical role. Technology becomes an enabler for CX-led transformation, but you start with the customer experience. How do you do this? I like to recommend a business framework to achieve CX-led transformation. And the goal for CX-led transformation is to deliver personalized digital experiences and services, hence achieving profitable growth for telcos. It consists of 3 basic building blocks built on a foundation network, a reliable network as the foundation. The foundation for any telco is making sure the network works wherever and whenever the customers need, and allows them to do whatever they want to do without even they noticing network exists. That is fundamental. And the first building block on top of the foundation is the organizational and digital capabilities. When I say organizational capability, is people. When I say people, it's predominantly about having a CX-led mindset with agile ways of working. And then comes the partner capabilities. When I talk about partner capability here, it is extremely important that telcos have partners who can have a deeper strategic win-win partnership with the telcos and focused on delivering and improving end users' customer experience. Moving on to the process, and it's not only the process and policies. You can have great people and great partners, but it is extremely important to have the processes and policies which are customer friendly. And moving on to digital capabilities, of course, I've been in this industry for a couple of decades, and we didn't have several capabilities, and that was the limiting factor for telcos to deliver a great experience. But now we have those capabilities, and you can do things manually, but it is extremely difficult to sustain the momentum. If you want to maintain the momentum with the customer experience, we do need to have the digital capabilities. For example, real-time big data analytics capability, the cloud capability, the cognitive services capabilities. We didn't have these before. So we do need to have these digital capabilities. Then the second building block in here, I call it as a hyperscaler-like business operation. It's all about intelligent, automated, data-driven business operations. It's all the way from network operations to field operations, to network operations, to customer operations, and omni-channel, and delivering omni-channel engagement for customers, and providing predictive service management and predictive maintenance capability so that we can fix issues before customers notice it, and high personalized 360-degree view of the customers. Having that, we would enable us to provide personalized services. And the last building block there is service platforms, which enable the telcos to create product and services to upsell. And for example, in these instances, it's 5G services, Edge, IoT services, and then moving on to non-telco services. So as I said before, the telcos need to sell additional products, and the service platform should enable them to do. It's not only non-telco services, it's network as a platform, IT as a platform. So as a summary, the framework consists of 3 building blocks built on a reliable network as a foundation, which will enable us to deliver great experience and sell additional products to customers as personalized digital experience and services. If I may give you an example, it may be going through many of in mind as to what could that example be. If I may give you an example which is as simple as that. Say, for example, I sit in a room working from home, and what most of the telcos focus on is they deliver me 200 megabit per second on my modem, on the broadband modem. What is not being looked at is what is my experience when I'm sitting in a room. Can this be understood? Can the context be understood? And I'm proactively offered help and support. It could also, the solution may well be having a Wi-Fi mesh so that my experience is understood and I'm given a great experience, and I would love those telcos. That's one. There are several examples. For example, proactive healthcare, for instance. Say you are jogging somewhere and suddenly your health condition deteriorates. If I can ask you to calm down, that is another personalized, contextualized digital experiences and services that we can create. With that, I like to hand over to my colleague Jaap to take us through how do we achieve this for CSPs.
Yes, thank you, Mony, for this very interesting vision. And it's really an interesting topic, how to become a real CX-led company where the customer is driving everything in the organization, because in the end, the customer is also paying the bills and paying also our salaries. But how can the communication service providers and the telcos achieve this transformation needed? And I would like to go to the next slide. What I think is that what our vision is, that we also then need to start with the end user. So who are the personas where the telcos are working for? They are students, they are families, boys and girls, and they have different needs. You can distinguish them in the consumer segment and in the enterprise segment and in the wholesale segment. And although their customer experience has very similarities, there are differences between the personas. So this persona is really important. And what is nice of the telco industry is that you know a lot of things from the heritage, because we are already delivering 100-year communication services. We have a lot of lessons learned from the past, but also with 5G and all kinds of new things, also new products and services will arise, what we are not aware of currently. So we also need to be very adaptive. We need to be able to change and to be very agile to adopt future changes. And based on these requirements, together in the industry and headed by the TM Forum, we defined an open digital architecture. I share with you now a high-level picture of the open digital architecture. On the top level, you see the engagement management. So how to manage the relations with the customers. Then you have the party management domain. That's the domain, and Mony discussed, for example, in the B2B with 5G, that you need to work with partners. So the management of these partners is really important. And when you can create microservices with building blocks and integrate it very easily with open APIs, you become much more flexible. In the core commerce, that's the domain where you manage your CPQ, you configure price code, your order management, and all the commercial relations for getting new customers, cross and upsell, but also retain customers, renew customers. And in the production, that's the domain where you deliver the services as mentioned, and also the new services as mentioned by Mony. And of course, it must be all data driven, because data is giving new insights, and with these new insights, we can create new business outcomes. So in summary, it starts with the end user, understand in depth their persona, design the customer journeys, and based on that, define a new target architecture, create the architecture, migrate the customer data, and also decommission the legacy systems, because if you don't decommission the legacy systems, your cost will increase, because then you have to manage your legacy systems and your new system. And that's complicated, and that's what we also see at several telcos. As stated before, of course, we know a lot of things from the past, 4G, fiber to the home, the DSL, but there are still coming new developments in, and they also will create new services. So what I'm sharing currently with you is a very high level architecture of a 5G network where new services can be created, because 5G has new functionalities like low latency time. They can connect billions of internet devices, and it also enables operators to deliver service with mobile broadband access. And those services will be delivered via network slicing. So you can slice your network to create different services. But to do that, of course, your customer engagement systems and all your systems and all your processes should enable that. So that are new requirements which you also have to take into consideration in defining your new target open digital architecture. So what we learned at Atos, and what we also where we support our customers, is that we look at the transformation from a holistic approach. One thing is, of course, the open digital architecture. It starts with the user requirements to design it. It's about redesigning your digital business processes and make them also like Lego blocks that you can configure them. Those solutions, we prefer to make them cloud native, and it can be on a private cloud, or it can be on a public cloud, on a hybrid cloud, but cloud native, and bring in all the benefits of this cloud solutions. And what is really important also is to transform the operating model, and maybe that's even more complex than transforming the processes and the system. It's really about also changing the mindset that people, also the top management, adopt a new way of working, that they become servant leadership. That there is also a mindset in the company for adopting this skilled agile way of working. So let me go into that transformation of the operating model to become a skilled agile operator. What I'm showing here is a typical example of a new operating model of a telecom operator. So of course, on the left side, a telco, they have still their mission and vision, for example, that they want to become the digital telco, driving all the digital innovation in a country, be an enabler. And what we see then is that many times we see operators that they create a business value stream for consumer customers. They create a business value stream for the enterprise customers, and they create a business value stream for the wholesale customers, because the marketing mix for those different segments differs, and those value streams need to deliver the different business requirements from their segments. Then the processes, they they must be adapted to the specific segments, but you can also they have many similarities. So the ordering process, the product catalog and the ordering process, or the assurance process and the billing process, they look similar, but they need to be adopted a little bit to the different customer segments. And then the big change is then in the IT delivery, that we work in DevOps teams, where the product owner is coming from the business. They define what is needed. They listen to the customers and translate the customer experience user stories into a product backlog, and that's then created with the DevOps teams. And the DevOps teams also take care if there's an issue later on for the second and third line support. To give you maybe a practical example for a European telco where Atos is the business partner. So this telco had the ambition to really deliver the most optimal omni-channel customer experience. So not a customer experience in a multi-channel, but really omni-channel. We created those value streams. Then together with the business, we worked together in the ready teams to define all the epics. And then we delivered the people, the done teams, who could configure and test and integrate all the solutions. This was done in a full DevOps way of working, where Ops and Dev were working together with a lot of automation of the CI/CD chains. And because this operator also wanted to reduce the cost, what we did, we make benefit of our offshore colleagues in India. So we had a mixed team with on-site, nearshore, and offshore people, and we brought more of the business in an 80% offshore ratio to India. So this is, I think, a nice example, and it really worked because we also saw after this implementation of the CRM transformation that the market share of this telco operator increased, and also the profitability of the company increased. So it's not just words. It is we really, an analyst also made an assessment, and they saw the increase of the market share and the profitability and also the market share. Thank you. I would now like to hand over to Jonathan.
Great, thank you, Jaap. So there's been some really great questions in the chat that we've received, and we'll actually address a few of them as we go through here. But it should be of no surprise that we think at Salesforce that customer experience is absolutely critical. It's very much the center of what we do and very much the center of where we're seeing results from our customers. There's actually been a few blogs that we've posted that I've written on our website that you can go and check at salesforce.com blogs that talk about the customer experience and the importance of this customer experience and how it's changing and how the tools that we use to address it must change as well. And so that's very critical. If we think about the different paths, and one of the questions, what happens for a small operator, how can they do it? Well, the approach to digital transformation, to any type of transformation, really depends on so many different factors, and it is not one size fits all. It's critical to understand the environment that you are in and the changes that you can make. You might want to be tempted to do a whole new stack and a whole new infrastructure like you have on the right-hand side here. Some of our customers like Orange in Poland and Visible and Inwi and BT have been able to do that for specific lines of business, and that made sense in their scenarios because they were doing something different. They wanted to create a different market presence, and that made a lot of sense. And you get some fantastic results. The example from Orange in Poland, getting 50% of activations from competitors or new numbers. It wasn't that they were cannibalizing their old business. They were getting new activations. And that was addressing the very specific needs of a younger or a different market segment, a different audience. Sometimes you have so much invested in your existing legacy environments that the only change you can make is really just to address very specifically this customer experience layer. And so that kind of goes to the question that was posed. Sometimes you are embellishing or enhancing or in fact activating the systems that you already have in your environment. And so we've done that with many customers, Verizon, Vodafone, Liberty, CenturyLink, Lumen. And the example there is Lumen, when they launched the quantum fiber offering here in the United States, they had a 5 times increase in customer NPS. And so that really is a testament to the focus on customer experience. Very dramatic increases there, that they didn't have to make a whole-scale change of everything, but that they focused on those customer-facing personnel and making sure that those customer-facing processes are were enhanced and really were the focus of their customer experience transformation path. Sometimes you can do a hybrid approach, and we've done that with many customers as well around the world. Telus and Telstra, Claro, Telecom Argentina, all different emphasis, and Rogers, all different emphasis that they've been doing. Sometimes they're putting new functionality, new experiences on top of the existing environment. Sometimes they're standing up new environments, but it really does depend on on where you are and the amount of money you can spend, and the desire to go after a different market segment. That tends to be the differentiator of doing something completely different, as we have on the right-hand side of this screen. So it really is a combination of different functions and different factors that are helping us define what the best approach is. But we have seen success in many different scenarios with many different customers, literally all around the world. One other question that was in the chat talked about what are the inhibitors or what are the challenges that we have that really decrease customer sat. And so it is things like the simplicity of that customer-facing experience, having that customer experience or the tools for the customer-facing personnel be simple, be transparent. And if it's a self-service site, make it easy, make it simple. One of the emphasis that we have right now in my team and our whole product organization is making it easy. It has to be very easy for the end user, for the end customer. Other challenges and problems that we see is inconsistency across channels. As you go from a self-service mode to on a website to calling into a contact center or emailing or chatting with the contact center, walking into a retail store, working with a field technician, that disconnected experience is also a very significant challenge for many environments. And so that is what creates these negative customer experiences. Lack of real-time access. I'm kind of reading from some stats that the study we did with another large consulting firm in the last year and a half. Real-time access to information is another key driver for satisfaction or lack of satisfaction, because getting a different answer or getting a delayed answer from different channels, again, back to that consistency, is a big problem, a large dissatisfier. And then lack of personalized responses or personalized interactions, very critical. Don't treat me like the million other customers. I'm different. I have my own needs, my own requirements, my own scenario. And so being able to personalize that is critical. And of course, the way you personalize that, and that was actually the subject of one of the blogs that we did, is about data and AI. And so it's really important to have those different data points to be able to personalize that experience and provide that great experience to your customers. So with that, I think we're going to move over to the panel discussion. And here we go. So John, back to you.
Great. Great, thank you, Jonathan. That was great. So let's have a short, quick panel just to talk about some of the points that you have heard in the session today. So a lot of great insight there, on the urgency of digital transformation, on the importance of customer experience, how operators are, or what is the context that operators are functioning within, to deliver improved customer experience, and also some examples of how selected operators are doing it. That said, we know that transformation of CX is far from easy. It can take a lot of time, and there are also cases of failures where where what was aimed for wasn't quite achieved. So in that regard, I guess my first question is, what is it that actually holds telcos back from delivering a complete customer experience transformation? I don't know who wants to go first. Mony?
Yeah.
Shall I take that question? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, you can start. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, I think the most important one, but that's my opinion, is that this is people business. So really mobilizing all the people to have the desire and to become to adopt the change. That is a big challenge, I think, in telco operators. Telcos, they also have such a long history. They have some telcos, they still have the PSTN network, or they have the ISDN network, or the GSM 2 network, and all those network with the process and the products must be still served. So you have also different rhythms in the organization. Some people are really ahead and eager for the transformation, and other they are more farming the existing business. And then you see that telcos are organized in many islands. You have the marketing, sales, you have the IT department, you have, and it's complicated to mobilize and get all the noses in the same direction. So I think so the people part is an important aspect to look at to make changes, transformation successful.
Thank you, Jaap. Just to add to what Jaap said, it's a fantastic question, and I have been reflecting on it for a long time. And I would like to put it across three things. One is capabilities, which Jaap has already touched upon. The second is complexity. That also Jaap talked about. The third is the approach that is taken for transformation. If I go back to capabilities, the organizational capabilities, and the first thing that I find as a challenge is the ability to link customer experience initiatives to commercial outcome, which many of the telcos do struggle, because when you go with a business case to a CFO to ask to sign a check, the first question he would ask is the saving bankable? The moment it is a cost saving or incremental revenue in terms of ARPU, very well you can show. But quite often, the telco organization do struggle to link the customer experience with the commercial outcome. I have come across in my personal life, and I have also come across this with other customers. Then the second one is having that CX culture of CX-led agile mindset. Of course, I did talk about a business architecture or a business framework, but we don't have to take a monolithic approach. We can do things incrementally. And finally, what Jaap mentioned, the siloed ways of working. It is extremely important. Various teams from different parts of the organization come together with a shared goal to work to achieve that goal. In my previous organization, we used to call something called a circle with a coach or a product owner and with a shared goal. I have seen that working. Then the second point in terms of the capabilities is digital capabilities. As I said before, being in this industry for a long time, and there are several things we wanted to do, but we didn't have the capabilities. For example, what Jonathan mentioned is having access to real-time information. It's fundamental. What that would enable us to do is a data-driven, intelligent automation. It's fundamental because the environment is extremely complicated. What I have learned is a human being can't do many of the things that we like to do. We didn't have predictive maintenance capability, for example. And still, I don't see many of the telcos do predictive maintenance, end-to-end predictive maintenance capability. That's what we should be doing. For example, the cognitive service capabilities that Jonathan talked about, AI and analytics capabilities, digital field service capabilities. I don't see this working in telco environment, particularly in terms of having that capability. That's about the capability, about the complexity. As Jaap mentioned, we had 2G. Now there are 4 layers of mobile technologies. Same thing goes in the fixed environment. And then when it comes to IT, we have legacy IT and we have the new IT. Making all of it work, that is really complicated. And that complexity is profiting. So it's extremely important to simplify. And final point is the approach that is taken for transformation. You have an opportunity to take a technology-led approach, or you can take a cost-led approach, a CX-led approach. The transformations that I have seen predominantly, although the strategic goal is a customer experience, it's technology-led. It's I'm rolling out to 5G, or I'm doing NFV, and also the measures those are reported is average speed, average call drop. it's in my opinion, this could be more customer-led. And say, for example, in Telco, we do a brilliant job in terms of cost-led transformation. Take the case of managed services that we have done, outsourced managed services, tobacco, merger and acquisition, network sharing. We have done brilliantly. But I'm yet to see that CX-led transformation taking place in telco industry. But it is extremely important we start with the customer experience and leverage technology as an enabler. That's what I think will help us move away from not a great customer experience to delivering world-class customer experience. And in my opinion, the opportunity is massive in this space. And I sincerely believe in that. Yeah.
Great. Jonathan, anything to chime in here?
I think we have a couple of other questions, so let's keep going.
All right, so we just have one other question here, before we get into the Q&A, which is on how, given this is a huge challenge, and as I think Jaap mentioned, it's much more than technology. There is also a culture and structural issue that has to be addressed, and also competency, as Mony said. How can partners help operators, cross that chasm, in terms of transformation of CX? Maybe we'll have a quick, brief discussion on that before we jump into Q&A.
So do you start with Jonathan? Jonathan, you want to take the question?
Go for it. I thought I saw him raise his hands.
Sorry, no. So how do partners help? I was reading some of the other questions.
Yeah, indeed. So if you look at how partners can help, I think partners, you have different partners, of course. You have partners like Salesforce or other vendors. They have a very strong solution with all the best practice already in place to which can be reused, so that reduces the time to market. But you also have partners like system integrators who can help with all kinds of best practices, what they learned at other telcos, to replicate to your to your environment, to also increase the success rate. And then you have, of course, also partners to create new products. For example, if a telco in the B2B market, they are looking for new use cases to sell. Have, for example, all kinds of solutions in the IoT space, or that telcos are willing to become a cloud hosting partner, or that they sell a reseller of digital workplace. There you can also work together with partners to create these new solutions. So from all perspectives, I really believe that we are living in an ecosystem where each company is very strong in a certain domain, and combining the capabilities of all these partners and people, that is creating the beautiful things in the world. But that would be my opinion.
Yeah, I can give definitely.
That's great.
To that.
That's great.
So what Jaap said was critical.
Yep.
The other important factor is domain expertise. Peanut butter approaches, everybody getting the same thing, doesn't work. The verticalization, the specialization, particularly in our domain of the communication service providers, is critical. And so finding a solution provider and a solution partner who has particular domain expertise is critical. This is not selling advertising. Right. I have great respect for my friends who do advertising, but this is not the same thing. The complexity of our industry, and we've been referring to some of this complexity here, really dictates that you need a partner, both in terms of a technology provider and in terms of a solution integrator who really understand your industry.
Yeah, I think, thank you, Jaap and Jonathan. Go on. I like to add something here. Is it okay?
Yeah, go ahead, Mony. Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And just to add to that, and both Jaap and Jonathan have mentioned how complex the telco environment is, and many of our telco colleagues would also appreciate that. Given the nature of this, I think in addition to having a partner who can deliver technology, and also having a system integrator like Atos who can commit on something like a business level agreement. The most important thing I see here is also non-technical, which is about having a strategic win-win-win partnership with a shared goal. That means the telco and the partner is trying to address, trying to achieve the same outcome. And the partner's ability to put the skin in the game is extremely important. And for example, in Atos, we do this. We focus on creating value for customers and deliver people experience and customer experience, but at the same time, making sure that we are their trusted digital partner and enabling secured and decarbonized digital operations. And another thing I like to also point out here, what I was missing when I was in the telco industry was the thought leadership and the best practices coming from other industries. That is a system integrator should be able to bring in. And I would also like to highlight, this is something I observed while sitting the other side of the fence in the telco side. Most of the partners would come and sell technology, additional box, additional system. There is rarely anyone who came and said, I want to help you simplify. I want to help you take out something. And that hasn't been the focus of the partners. That's why, as a partner, I think there is quite a bit of, the value that the partners need to bring in, which is outside the technology, including simplifying the environment for telcos.
Yep. All right. Thank you, Mony. We are short of time, so we will quickly jump into Q&A. So a fair number of questions coming in from the audience here. We may not be able to go through all of them, but those who want to continue to send us your questions on the screen on the left side. So we have a question here. What are the primary negatives that you observe drive a negative customer experience? Jonathan, can I just ask you to take that, please?
Yes, so I talked about a few of them. So the simplicity, the transparency, the ease of use, the consistency across channels or inconsistency across channels. We talked about the real-time access to information, very critical. There's also the personalization, not one size fit all, but also very specific to the individual or the consumer or the business. This applies both to B2C and B2B. Another one that we didn't talk about, but there was a question earlier, talks about privacy and security. While you want personalization, you also must respect privacy and security. And so the use of not just consent, that's passive or almost a negative concept, but understanding the preferences of the customer and allowing the customer to modify and manage their preferences as you're being compliant with things like GDPR and CCPA and other jurisdictions. That's critical. So being able to provide simplicity, transparency, easy, the consistency across channels, real-time access to information, consistency there again, and then personalization with respect to preferences, privacy, and security.
Great. Thank you. The next question is, what advice would you give to new greenfield operators that are not encumbered by legacy systems to ensure that we are properly focused on realizing a customer-centric approach? Jaap, do you want to take that question?
Yes, thank you. Well, that would be a dream. That would be really cool, that you really can start a new telco, a greenfield from scratch without any heritage, and then you really can take all the greatest of the market currently. We see it at some telcos who launch 5G standalone networks and can benefit of all the cloud benefits and really can deliver this customer experience. Yeah, I think the approach is still the same. It's still start with defining the personas, start with designing the customer journeys, look ahead of all the new technology possibilities which are the customers not aware currently, because the technology, so it's a customer demand and the technology push, and mix that and combine that in your journeys, and then create a target operating model and deliver the CRM and the BSS and the networks. Wow, how beautiful is that? So that would be my approach.
Well, great.
Yeah.
Great. That's as you said, that's a dream place to start. We will have just one more question here. What are the top KPIs for gauging the successful launch of a new customer engagement platform? I'll put that to you, Mony, if you want to take that.
Yeah. Okay. My view on this is, at the end of the day, it has to be, the KPI has to be what is the customer or the business outcome that the telcos are trying to achieve. And that has to be the same KPI which is shared between the partners and the telcos as a BLA, business level agreement. But for example, it could be the overall customer NPS. It can be the journey NPS, or we call it the transactional NPS, for example, which is specific to a particular transaction or a particular journey. It can be churn. It can also be definitely, I mean, one of the reasons why we are also delivering great engagement platform to enable omni-channel engagement is to upsell and cross-sell as well, actually. So conversion rate has to be another KPI that we should be measuring.
We cannot hear you, John.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. So thank you all once again. I was just saying we have had some questions we haven't had the time to address. Hopefully we will be able to get back to you after the webinar. I just want to thank all of you once again for attending the webinar today. As I said initially, the webinar has been recorded and you will be able to access the recording within 24 hours using the same link that was sent to you earlier. Thank you all for joining, and we look forward to seeing you again at future events. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.